Unknown Overland. I'm Unknown Shadow. This is Albert. This is Colorado. For those that are new here, thanks for checking out the channel. If you like anything, you know, like, subscribe. Maybe. Today should be a little bit shorter. Because really we're just going to focus on aesthetics. I don't know what it is with bike makers and government regulations that seems to equal really ugly stock lighting situations. On the Honda Monkey, especially in the US, the stock lighting for the taillights and the turn signals is just horrible. It's huge, it's bulky, it's just kind of like the Euro style bike has a much nicer looking taillight setup. I'm not really sure why we don't have that in the US kind of stock, but that's just the way it goes. I've been somewhat slow on figuring out what exactly I wanted to do. I kept thinking that I really wanted the Euro style taillight, but it's so expensive getting it into the US that it just didn't necessarily make sense. So I've been doing various research trying to figure out what options that I really like. And one of the setups that I saw comes from TST Industries, TST. I'm not sure how they name themselves. They have a super simple layout, flush mounts, an integrated taillight that includes the turn signals, and I mean, honestly, that sounds fantastic. So I went out, picked up all the parts needed. I'll have some links in the description box down below to take a look at those. Definitely not sponsored, just happened to be something that I like the look of and them trying it out. Unless they want to sponsor me, and then, you know, that'd be cool too. So the install for this was a lot like the install on that I did on my Triumph, which I'll put a link to that video up around there, which monkey people probably don't necessarily care, but who knows? Maybe it's interesting. I went flush mount on the front turn signals. It's basically, you know, pull off the headlight so you can have access to the wires. One thing that I found easiest is also to kind of take the bell off as well, so that you can kind of push that down, because it's a little bit tight getting in there to get to the screws that's holding onto the lights themselves. But once I had that out of the way, taking the lights off is easy. Installing the lights is also easy. Running the wires, plugging everything in, no problem at all. Because that mount point is so slick on there, on this bracket, really that flash mount LED, it just kind of spun around way too easily. You could just barely any force and you could move it. So what I did was I actually went in and I put in a little bit of double-sided 3M tape. I don't know why everybody's turning so close to me. I am in a turn lane. So I put a little bit of 3M double back tape on there, but even just that little bit, stuck that on there and then tightened it all back down. Even just that little bit made the difference, and now it doesn't move around as much, which is a lot nicer. Now, one thing that you'll notice is that when you replace incandescent bulbs with LEDs on a lot of bikes like this, all of a sudden you get hyper flash. Now, there are two ways to kind of deal with that. You can either go in with some resistors, load resistors on the actual LEDs themselves, or you can swap out the relay. I went ahead with the swapping out the relay option. When I picked up the part, I didn't quite pay attention to where the relay was on the Monkey. Turns out it's about halfway up under the tank, which meant, of course, getting the tank up and out of the way. Not difficult, but a pain, especially depending on how many other things you've modded under the tank. So that's a little bit of annoyance, but it's doable. The relay from plug and play, just pull out the old relay, put in the new relay, mount everything back up, put it all back together, and then the LED, the flashers are back to a normal mode. With the front taken care of, then I needed to take care of the back end of the bike. and that was going to be a little bit more involved. The Euro style tail is a lot prettier, but it's too expensive. So what I did was I went with the integrated tail light setup so that I could get rid of the horrendous turn signals, stock turn signals. TST has a blocking kit to kind of to fill in that spot, and so that means I have one module that is both my brake light and my turn signals, which is quite cool. The install, I mean, it takes a few steps. You got to get into the fender, take the light off, and then crack the housing on the light. It's got 4 screws, so it's really super simple to kind of open up. Once you're in there, it's just removing the current tail light, the current turn signals, and kind of pulling all those parts out and all those wires. Once the turn signals were out, then I could install that block-off kit, which was very easy. It's just mainly making sure that you get it, oh, that's quite the dirt. It's just making sure that you get everything kind of lined up is the bigger piece of it. For the tail lights, it's just literally 2 bolts on the back. Tighten those down, kind of put the spacers in to kind of be able to tighten it down. And once it's on there, everything fit nicely, everything looks like it's stock. Once the housing's all put back together, just pop it back onto the bike and everything just plugs right in. Because it's an integrated light and they have a nice little wiring harness, it's a super simple plug-in job, plug-and-play job. They mentioned that it's a programmable tail light, which means that there's a number of different flashing options that it has. The only real problem is to change which flash pattern that you want to use. The button's on the back of the taillight itself, which means that you have to get back into the housing. So it's probably better to kind of have it all kind of half put together and then plug it into the bike and play around with that setting. Once you have it set, it stays, but yeah, I kind of put everything together and then realized that it was kind of strobing and I really don't want to cause seizures. After that, all it was is just get back on the bike and ride it. Looks a lot nicer, a lot simpler. It's still using that stock housing for the rear end, which is a bit big. Just having kind of that smaller profile, all of that being a little bit sleeker looking, I think it just fits the line of the bike a little better. And I like having the smoked out versions of each, just because I like smoked out versions of LED lights. But that's about all I have this week, an aesthetic change. But one that I think that people hopefully will be interested in, at least in this option. I know there's a ton of options out there for different turn signals, different tail lights, things that people like that look a little different, and I mean, it's one of the nice things about this bike, just make it look like what you want. But for now, that's really all I've got. Hopefully you found something interesting in this video. If you did, like, subscribe, comment, do those things if you like to do those things. But in the meantime, hopefully you're having a good day. Thanks for watching. Bye.